Hello everyone. I am the storyteller. Tonight, I'll tell you a story that hums beneath the tracks and rattles through the marrow of forgotten places, a tale stitched together by shadows, rules, and whispers no one dares to question. Some say it's just urban myth, the sort of creepy nonsense passed around late-night forums or slurred out by drunks in station bars. But I know different. I sat in that seat. I followed the rules. And I saw what rides the rails after midnight. It began on an ordinary platform under an indifferent sky, with a discount ticket and a name no one's ever heard of, Quick Track. They promised cheap travel. What they delivered was something else entirely. Something alive. So sit still. Keep your eyes on me. Let the steady rhythm of the wheels lull you, but whatever you do, don't break the rules. Because this story remembers you back. And it doesn't like to be forgotten. Last month, my girlfriend and I decided to take a trip to visit her family. After searching various travel sites, we decided the best and cheapest way would be to take an overnight train to Boston. There was a train that left Washington, D.C. at 8:32 p.m. and arrived in Boston at 5:17 a.m. It was from an off-brand railway called Quick Track, and the entire trip cost $120, which was dirt cheap. It turned out to be the worst decision of our lives. The station was desolate as we waited for the train. There were just 3 other people on the platform, a middle-aged couple and an old guy reading a book. "Good evening," a man in a conductor's uniform said as we hobbled up to the train, dragging our suitcases. The old man and middle-aged couple boarded as well. A few cars down, we stepped in, and that's when I realized that I'd been completely misled. The train looked nothing like the photos online. The blue cloth seats were faded and dusty, the yellowish lights were flickering in a maddening, syncopated rhythm that made my eyes twitch. The windows were dirty, covered in fingerprint smudges, and off-key elevator music piped through the speakers. This was going to be the trip from hell. "Where do you want to sit?" Amanda asked, looking around the empty train car. I guess that was the one upside, the train car that we were in was completely empty. I had been on crowded trains before, and it wasn't a pleasant experience. It wasn't just the lack of personal space, it was the awkwardness of sitting so close to a stranger, wondering if you were being rude by ignoring them, wondering if you were supposed to fill the silence with small talk. "Well, I guess here's good," I said, motioning to a row of seats near us. We sat down, and I was again reminded what a bad decision I had made. The seats across the aisle from us looked like they were stained with coffee or some other dark liquid. The entire train car had that fake perfumey odor of cheap air freshener. Somebody probably sprayed it everywhere to cover up how much the train stank from years of not being cleaned properly. Gross. As we got settled, the elevator music quieted, and a man's voice came over the speakers. It sounded like a recording from how polished and smooth the voice was. "Thank you for choosing Quick Track. We're thrilled to have you on board. To ensure a safe, relaxing trip, please make sure to follow our rules. You can also find them in the seat back pockets for your convenience." Quick Track Safety Rules. Rule 1. Passengers are expected to stay seated for the trip unless they're using the bathroom or buying a snack in the cafe cart. Quick Track is not liable for any injuries you sustain while riding. Rule 2. Cart number 8 is the designated quiet cart. Do not talk, whisper, or consume food in this car. Absolute silence must be maintained at all times. Rule 3. Do not enter car number 12 of the last car for any reason. Rule 4. There is no station called Crystal River Station. If the intercom announces a stop there, close your eyes until the train has passed it. If anyone boards at the station, immediately move to a different train car. Rule 5. You may see a woman wearing a long blue dress in your car with dark hair and a lot of jewelry. Do not approach this passenger in any way. Do not talk to her, and if she talks to you, ignore her. Do not under any circumstances leave your seat to get away from her. She will eventually leave. Rule 6. Pay close attention to the scenery outside your window. If it does not physically match up with the terrain that you should be seeing according to the map, cover up your window. Rule 7. Depending on your route, you may make a stop at Smithson Junction. Do not get off the train at this station for any reason. This is a service stop, and there's no way to safely off-board. Rule 8. When the conductor comes by to scan your ticket, make sure that he's wearing a red and purple badge with our logo. If he isn't, do not show him your ticket. Do not answer his questions. Do not look at him, and do not let him know your final destination for any reason. Rule 9. Do not get off the train at any station other than the one printed on your ticket. Thank you for your attention. Following these rules will help ensure that you have a fun, safe, and relaxing trip on Quick Track. Enjoy your stay. Amanda and I stared at each other. Well, that was weird, she said. Really weird, I agreed. If there's some creepy woman who keeps riding the train or a creepy guy impersonating the conductor, why don't they get the police involved? Hey, maybe they already have. Maybe the police didn't help them, she replied. Do you think we're safe? There are lots of other people on this train, we should be fine, I said, trying to reassure her and myself. I hugged her close. Besides, you got me to protect you. I guess, she said doubtfully. Well, that certainly didn't boost my confidence. Soon, however, we forgot all about the weirdness of the rules. We had an 8-hour train ride ahead of us, and there were a million things on my mind. I was worried that Amanda's parents wouldn't like me. Apparently, they were the fussy, proper types. I had been smart enough to trim my beard and make myself look less like a wild lumberjack mountain man, but I was definitely not the type of guy that they had been envisioning for their daughter. I guess it was even trade. My parents didn't like Amanda either, for ridiculous reasons like the tattoo on her arm. It was small text that read, "What doesn't kill me makes me stronger." Still, I was hoping for someone to approve of us, and maybe if I knocked it out of the park this week, her parents would like me. A lot of pressure there. Amanda didn't seem to be having the best time either. The dry air in the cabin gave her a bloody nose, and she spent the first 20 minutes of the trip stuffing tissues up her nostrils. I'm so sorry, she kept saying as she walked bloody tissues over to the trash can at the back of the car. This is so gross. I felt bad for Amanda. She had clearly grown up in a culture where normal bodily functions of women were frowned upon. When we both came down with a cold a few weeks ago, every nose blow was followed by an apology. Do you want to watch something? Amanda asked once her nose had stopped bleeding. Sure. And then things suddenly got better. Since we were the only ones in the car, I wrapped my arms around her and I gave her a kiss. She snuggled her head against my shoulder. We picked a movie and turned the volume all the way up on her laptop. For a while it was like our own private movie theater, rocketing through the darkness at 100 miles per hour. And then I heard someone cough behind us. My brain barely even registered it at first. It was a natural sound, something that you would expect to hear in a train around people. But of course, it wasn't natural because the train car was empty. I glanced back, my heart dropped. There was someone sitting several rows behind us. I couldn't see much of them, just the top of a head with dark hair poking out above the rows of seats. I nudged Amanda. There's someone behind us, I whispered. What? Really? She glanced back and then poked her head a little into the aisle to get a better look. Did you hear them come in? I asked. No. We had had the volume up high on the laptop, that was true. Still, the doors that led between the train car and the vestibule were loud. They made a very recognizable rattling sound, and I think that I would have heard it over the movie. I hadn't heard any footsteps either, or the rolling of a suitcase. Besides, the train hadn't stopped anywhere since we had gotten on. Maybe this person was just switching seats or coming back from the cafe car. Still, it was weird. Amanda turned the volume down on the laptop, and we continued watching the movie. I threaded my arm out from around her shoulders. This wasn't our own private movie theater anymore. About 20 minutes later, I heard something else, the soft sound of a zipper being pulled. Reflexively, I glanced back, and my heart started to pound. The person was now only 2 rows behind us. I nudged Amanda silently and pointed. She glanced back and looked at me with wide eyes. "What are they doing?" she whispered. "I don't know." I leaned over Amanda, who was in the aisle seat, so I could get a better look. I couldn't see much, an arm, a shoulder, and a long lock of dark hair. I couldn't see her face. Her shoulder was clad in a light blue sleeve, and there were several bangle-style bracelets around her wrist, including one that was designed to look like a thin, gold snake. I hadn't heard her move closer to us. "I guess she just decided to move seats for some reason," I told Amanda. But inside, my stomach was twisting. This felt wrong. How could she come into the train car silently? Why would she move closer to us? "Wait a minute," Amanda whispered. "Didn't they say that a creepy woman would be wearing a blue dress and a lot of jewelry?" "Oh, yeah." I reached into the seat back pocket and pulled out the flyer that read, "Quick Track Safety Rules," on it. "Rule 5, I said, pointing. "It says that we should just ignore her." "Maybe we should move to a different car where there are other people," she hissed, exasperated. "No, the rules said not to do that," I replied. "Why the hell not?" she hissed, exasperated. "I don't know, maybe that'll antagonize her," I replied. It made sense. If she were some weirdo, she might like scaring us. Running away from her might be like running away from a bear, alerting her senses to the thrill of the chase. The rules said to ignore her, and so that's what we did. Amanda and I continued to watch the movie. I ignored the faint sounds that I heard behind us, a cough, a zipper pull, a soft click. I ignored everything. At one point, I thought that I felt a puff of warm air on my arm through the gap between the seats, but I shut my eyes tight and I told myself to ignore it. About a half hour later, the ambient sounds had stopped. Holding my breath, I glanced back. The woman was gone. Relief flooded me. I didn't realize how much tension I had been holding until that moment. My muscles relaxed, and I settled further into the chair. When the movie ended, Amanda and I decided to try to go to sleep. She pulled out her neck pillow and closed her eyes, and within 10 minutes, she was out. I, however, couldn't fall asleep. I gave up and I looked out the window. Across the tracks, I could see a neighborhood, a curvy, narrow street lined with cookie-cutter houses with glowing yellow windows and wraparound porches. From the train, it looked like one of those toy Christmas villages where LED lights twinkle in the windows and ice skaters go around and round a pond made of glass. Gold light spilled out from miniature street lamps, illuminating a couple walking their dog. A car pulled into a driveway, tail lights glowing red, and wait, there was someone standing in the cul-de-sac, illuminated by the red glow of the tail lights, watching us go by. Before I could get a closer look, the entire scene was gone, a dark strip of forest in its place. Well, that was weird. A few minutes later, the forest gave way to civilization again, and another town passed us in miniature. These houses were further apart, lining the serpentine roads that curved over the hills. One street ran parallel to the tracks, and I watched a bicycle zoom down the road, lit by the yellow glow of the sodium lamps, and then my heart plummeted. There was another person standing in the middle of the street, staring at us. My stomach did a flip. Why were these people staring at the train as it went by? If they live next to a railroad, they must be used to trains passing all the time, right? And it was so late out. I checked my phone, and it was after 10. It was a Friday night, but still, it didn't make sense. I saw the glow of more streets and houses approaching over the hills, and my heart began to pound. I didn't want to look out and see another person staring at us, but at the same time, I couldn't tear my eyes away. As we passed, my heart fell to the floor. There were 3 people, all standing on the street, staring at the train as it went by. They were pointing at us. I could only see their silhouettes, and then the train took a hard right turn. Residential streets were replaced by dark forest again, although it almost looked too dark out. I could barely make out the shapes of the trees. I could no longer see the full moon. Were we in a tunnel? I didn't think so, but it was so impenetrably dark. I could only see the reflection of my faces allow under the yellow lights of the train, eyes wide and mouth hanging open. The train veered right again, and I jostled in my seat, and then the moon peeked out from behind the trees, and we were crossing a deep, dark body of water. Water extended in every direction as far as the eye could see. We were on some sort of bridge, but it seemed to only be a few feet above the water. Maybe it wasn't even a bridge, but an easement or a dam or something just barely poking out of the water. It looked like a heavy rain could flood the tracks and sweep us under. I swallowed. One of my biggest fears was driving off a bridge and plummeting into the water, trying to desperately escape before the car sank. I suddenly imagined the train derailing, our car filling up with water, Amanda and me pounding on the windows. I tried to swallow those thoughts as best as I could. They have engineers and stuff who test for those things, they don't want to get sued. If it wasn't safe, they wouldn't let us ride it. But as I sat there, staring at the water extending out in every direction, the silver moon reflected in the waves, I realized something: there isn't some huge lake here. We had been on the train about 2 hours, we should have been in these suburbs of Philadelphia, not crossing an enormous lake. I pulled up my phone, I was right. The little blue dot on the map marking our location put us in these suburbs of Philly, not in the middle of a lake. I panned the view around, but I didn't see any bodies of water nearby. I switched between satellite and schematic view over and over, but neither showed anything resembling the lake that we were crossing. The rules, I thought. They said if what we see out the windows doesn't match, we need to cover the windows. Oh no, had I already broken the rules by staring out of the water so long? I grabbed my sweatshirt and stretched it over the window. It kept falling down, but then I realized that I could tie it to the luggage rack above us. After a few minutes of MacGyvering the thing, I finally made a makeshift shade in front of the window. I felt nauseous, overheated, and motion sick all at once. My entire body was tensed up, like I was expecting something to jump out at me at any moment. I sat there in a horrible silence for a few minutes, staring at the sweatshirt swaying with the motion of the train. And then the intercom rumbled to life. Philadelphia, 30th Street Station, a man's voice said over the speakers. I picked up a corner of the sweatshirt and peered out the window. To my relief, I saw the sprawling urban decay of Philadelphia-stained buildings, bright lights, and several train tracks all converging to head into the station. I yanked the sweatshirt down and pulled my phone out to double-check our location. Sure enough, it showed us at the 30th Street Station. The train car jostled, and Amanda startled awake. "Where are we?" she asked, groggy. "Philadelphia." "Only Philly," she groaned. We rolled into the station. The platform sat underneath the station building, halfway underground. Artificial lighting shone down, illuminating the few people waiting to board, a young couple like us and an older man carrying a large duffel bag. The brakes squealed to a stop. Should we just get off the train? I thought, looking out at the platform. There was less than an inch of glass between us and this stained, creepy car. In the normal world, we could get a room and another train ticket tomorrow. Two things kept me seated. First, we didn't have enough money to pay for a room and another train ticket. Second, the rules clearly stated that we could only get off the train at the location printed on our tickets. Following the rules had kept us safe so far. 6 more hours. I held my breath as the train rumbled back into motion. We snaked out of the underground station and out into the moonlight. I watched the buildings of Philadelphia scroll by, disappearing behind us and into the darkness. And then I heard the car doors rattle open. At first, I felt relief. One of the people who boarded is coming into our car, we won't be alone anymore. But when I looked up, I saw that it was the conductor making his way down the aisle. I reached for my phone to show him our ticket, and then stopped. There was something off about him. He was walking so slowly, and I could barely see his eyes under the shadow of his hat. He paced closer, each footstep lightly thumping on the tile. I quickly glanced at his chest, but didn't see the red and purple quick track pin. "Don't look at him," I whispered to Amanda. "I don't think that's the real conductor." "Should we get up?" she whispered back. "Go to a different car?" I nodded. The other cars would have other passengers, witnesses, and the rules didn't explicitly forbid running from the fake conductor like they did the woman in the blue dress. I squeezed Amanda's hand. "Come on, let's go." We stood at the same time, staring at the floor, careful to not even glance at the man. I stopped dead. Blocking our path was a pair of black men's shoes. The fake conductor was already here, standing right in front of our seats, blocking our way. "Tickets, please," he rumbled in a low voice. I kept my eyes on the floor. Should we push past him? The rules said don't look at them, they didn't say don't touch them, don't make physical contact with them. I frantically weighed the options in my head. "Tickets, please," the man said again, his voice impatient. Amanda gripped my hand so tight that I could feel pins and needles creeping over my fingers. And then suddenly, she yanked me forward. We stumbled past the conductor, his body bumped against mine, and a shudder of revulsion went through me. And then we were out in the aisle, and we both broke into a run towards the front of the car. The doors opened, and then we were in the near darkness of the vestibule, the metal floor jostling underneath us. I wanted to look back to see if he had followed us, but I didn't dare. The rules said not to look at him, and I wouldn't. We made it to the next train car. Relief flooded me as I saw it wasn't empty, and there was somebody sitting up by the front. Amanda and I collapsed into our seats, hearts pounding wildly. "I don't think he followed us," I said. "I don't hear anything." "Yeah, me neither." The two of us sat there, panting, trying to calm down. Maybe we should get off at the next stop," she said. "The rules said that we can't. And who even knows if the rules are meant to keep us safe? Maybe whoever wrote them wants to trap us here." Chills ran down my spine. I hadn't considered that. "Okay, maybe," I said finally. We fell into a tense silence, filled with the mechanical hum of the wheels underneath us. I stared straight ahead. This entire trip was probably the weirdest thing that had ever happened to me. Part of me didn't even believe it. It felt like some sort of weird dream. The weird passenger woman and the fake conductor could be explained, but the lake that we had passed over when we were supposed to be in the suburbs, that couldn't. I hadn't told Amanda about that. I didn't really want to. I stared straight ahead, trying to process everything, trying to figure out what would be the safest move. And then I noticed it, the person several rows in front of us. I could see the top of their head, but right above the seat back, there was a strip of something pale their forehead. Was the person sitting there, facing us? As I stared at them, they began to move. The head slowly inched up. It was a forehead, and then two dark eyes staring at us. Every muscle in my body froze. I grabbed Amanda's arm and pointed. She gasped, eyes wide as the person stared at us. Their hands reached up to grip the seat back, and I noticed several gold bangles on their wrist. It was the woman, the passenger that we were supposed to ignore. "Run!" I whispered. We got up and leapt into the aisle, turning towards the car that we came from, but not fake conductor. He was right there, curled up on the seats right beside us, waiting for us, hiding from us. He had a horrible grin on his face. We turned on our heels and ran the other way. I could hear his footsteps right behind us, getting closer and closer. I could see the woman in the blue dress sidestepping to intercept us, a smile on her face. I averted my eyes, focusing on running as fast as I possibly could. I made it to the front of the car, the doors rattled open. Amanda was only a few steps behind me. She ran in just a moment before the door rattled shut behind us. Without a word, we stumbled through the tilting, jostling vestibule and made our way to the next train car. To my enormous relief, there were several people in this car. "Help!" I shouted. There are people back there chasing us. But my voice died in my throat as I saw the sign hanging from the ceiling, quiet car. The rules said absolute silence was required in the quiet car. The dozen or so passengers stayed still in their seats, they didn't turn around. I took a tentative step forward, Amanda followed me hesitantly. Maybe it was okay. Maybe they didn't care that we had made noise. Maybe the weird woman and the fake conductor wouldn't follow us. Maybe everything was fine. I repeated this lie again and again in my head. We passed the first row of benches, there was an old woman sitting at the window seat, but she wasn't reading or anything, she was staring at the seat in front of her. I averted my eyes and continued forcing myself down the aisle. A scuffing sound came from behind us. I whipped around to see movement in the vestibule window. It was too fast for me to catch whether it was the woman or the conductor, but either way, the door didn't open for some reason, and they weren't following us. I turned back around, and my heart fell through the floor. All the passengers in front of us were now leaned into the aisle, staring at us. But there was something horribly wrong with them. Their skin and hair had a grayish tint to it, like all their color had been desaturated. Their eyes were the only thing brightly colored, they were severely bloodshot, bright red veins popping through the white. They didn't move, they just stared at us, still as statues. I glanced back and froze. The old woman behind us was now leaning into the aisle too. Her head was only about a foot from my body, and her face tilted up to look at me. Her skin was grayish and pale, and thick red veins branched through her eyes. The woman and the fake conductor still weren't following, were they even afraid of these things? When I finally wrenched my eyes from the woman behind me, all the people in the quiet car had moved again. Each one had a finger pressed against their lips, as if shushing us. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. The train rocketed through the darkness, gently swaying. The lights flickered overhead, casting the strange faces in relief, their features exaggerated and twisted. They stared at us, still as statues, hair slightly swaying with the movement of the train. And then we ran. I felt hands clawing at us, trying to drag us back, but I didn't dare look down. I focused all my energy on running, on keeping Amanda's hand locked tightly in mine. For a moment, she let go, and I thought that I had lost her, but then I felt her hand in mine again, and that was the motivation that I needed to push myself faster and harder. My legs were burning, my heart was beating, pain in my chest, but my eyes never left the door in front of us. We burst into the vestibule, swaying wildly with the movement of the train, and then we leapt into the next car. The terror shattered in an instant. We were standing in the cafe car, but everything seemed normal. There were people, an old guy eating a sandwich, spilling bits of lettuce on his shirt, a young couple sharing a soda in a booth and giggling, a middle-aged woman buying chips at the counter. I glanced back. No grayish people with bloodshot eyes shushing us, no woman in a blue dress, no fake conductor. From what little I could see through the window, the vestibule was empty, no one had followed us. What the hell? Can I help you, sir? I looked up to see a skinny teenager behind the counter looking up at us, and then his smile faded. Are you okay? I thought about telling him everything that happened, but what if he was in on it? Clearly, the people running the train knew about the fake conductor and the woman in the blue dress and the people in the quiet car, they were in the rules, yet they still chose to let us on board. Maybe Amanda was right, maybe the rules weren't designed to protect us, maybe this was all one big game. We're fine, I told him, before sitting down in one of the booths. My entire body was shaking, I felt like I was going to faint at any moment. Nothing made sense. How did the fake conductor even get in the car behind us? I didn't hear him. He must have slipped in right after us and then hid in the seats. And the woman, how did she slip past us into the car in front of us? Wouldn't we have seen her? Unless they aren't people, a little voice in the back of my mind said. We have to get out of here, I whispered to Amanda. We can't, the rules said not to, she replied. Oh, forget the rules, this is seriously messed up. What's the next stop? Trenton, she said. I tried doing some math in my head, figuring out how long we would have to stay on before the next stop. Less than an hour, I was sure of that, maybe 30, 40 minutes. We can't get off the train until Boston, you know that, she said more firmly this time. But you were saying it yourself back there that the rules might be meant to trap us here, I countered. Hey, we'll be fine until the morning. Look how many people there are in here. None of them are dead, she said. And how are they? We wouldn't know if any of them were dead. They would probably throw the body overboard. Survivorship bias. We were getting strange looks now. The girl who had been giggling with her boyfriend was now staring at me, her dark eyes wide. She whispered something to her boyfriend, who gave me a warning glance. Let's just call the police. I pulled out my phone. I had service. I could call 911 right now, tell them that we were on the train and that we were in danger. The police could meet us at Trenton. Whatever the rules said, it didn't matter. I started to dial 911. The line rang 3 times before a woman picked it up. Holding my hand over my mouth so no one else could hear what I was telling her, I described what was going on in the train and how we were in danger. I left out the things that didn't quite make sense, like the lake. When I had finished, the woman on the other end of the line asked me a single question. You said a quick track train. Yes. Sorry, we can't help you. And then the line went dead. I stared at my phone, the blood draining out of my face. They said that they couldn't help us, I said in a squeaky voice, still staring in disbelief. I'm going to go get a Coke, Amanda said. I need something. You want anything? I shook my head, still reeling. How could Amanda be so normal about this? She seemed a little nervous, but not totally freaking out inside like I was. The woman, the fake conductor, all those people in the quiet car that looked like there was something wrong with them. I watched Amanda lean over the counter, talking to the teenager working there, but then I noticed something. There was something off. I squinted, trying to figure out why I was suddenly so unsettled, why the gears in my head were screeching to a grinding halt. And then I realized what was wrong, the tattoo on her arm. The letters on the tattoo looked like alien letters, warped and misshapen, not spelling any real words. It was a jumble of loops and glyphs. I rubbed my eyes. It must be the lighting in here, it's so dim, and she's like 10 feet away. I squinted, confused. Smack. I jumped about a foot in the air. My head swiveled towards the sound. No, no, no. The window in the vestibule door, Amanda's face was pressed against it, blood was smeared across her cheeks, and her mouth was open in a silent scream. I looked back at the Amanda at the counter with the warped tattoo. She was staring at me, smiling. I jumped out of the booth as the other Amanda started towards me. I scrambled towards the door. Amanda! Amanda! I screamed. Just as I got to the door, her body was yanked backwards. All that was left on the window was a smear of blood. The door didn't open. I pried my fingers into the gap and pulled with all my strength. Slowly, inch by inch, it began to budge. As soon as it was open wide enough, I wedged myself through, and as soon as I was in the vestibule, I realized what was wrong. It was filled with cold, gusting air. The door was open. The fake conductor was holding onto Amanda's arm, and she was hanging halfway out of the train, her other arm pinwheeling in the wind, desperately trying to claw for purchase. I lunged for her, but the fake conductor slammed me back. His eyes gleamed at me as his mouth stretched into a grin. Let her go. I shouted, and then I realized what my words meant. If he let go, she would fall out of the train. I lunged for her again, and my hands hit the cold steel floor of the vestibule, and I clawed towards her. I got an arm around her waist and pulled, trying to pull her back into the train. A black shoe slammed into my hand, and I screamed. Amanda's eyes locked on mine as her hair blew wildly in the wind. Please, she whispered, tears running down her cheeks. Please help me. I reached for her hand, the one that the fake conductor wasn't holding. She tried to pull herself up, reaching for me. Two hands shot out of the darkness behind me and grabbed her roughly by the shoulders, arms clad in light blue sleeves. The conductor. I screamed, but then I realized he was pulling her back inside. A hand shot out and grabbed at me too, pulling me back in from the cold and whipping wind. I looked up to see the conductor, the real one, looking down at us. "Go back in," he shouted, shoving us back towards the cafe car. "I'll deal with them." Behind him on the ground, I could see the fake conductor. He looked up at us with a twisted grin. Amanda and I ran into the cafe car. The fake Amanda was now gone. The people sitting at the booth looked totally unperturbed, like they hadn't just heard Amanda and I screaming. I ushered her into a booth, shuffling in behind her, and wrapped my arms around her. "I'm so sorry," I whispered in her ear. She didn't say anything, she just stared out into space, her bottom lip trembling. The real conductor burst in, his coat flapping behind him. He leaned over us. "You have to follow the rules," he said, his dark eyes boring into mine. "Is that clear?" We did, we tried." "No, you didn't," he growled with so much anger that I jumped in my seat. "You could have died because of your stupidity. Follow the rules perfectly until you get off, do you hear me?" "Yes," I swallowed, nodding. And then he asked to see our tickets. I pulled out my phone and brought up the ticket. His scanner made a little beep. Shaking his head, he walked away from us, his footsteps receding through the cafe car. "I want to go home," Amanda whispered, holding onto my arm tight. "Yeah, me too." I pulled out the flyer from my pocket and I reread the rules. And then I read them a third time and a fourth. I checked the time, 11:04 p.m. 6 hours left. "As long as we do everything this says, we'll be fine." Amanda took the flyer from my hands and read them too, over and over again, chewing on her lip. And then she stared straight ahead with a 1,000-yard stare. 6 hours, 13 minutes left. For 3 hours, we sat still in the cafe car, afraid to even move. The longer that we sat there, however, the more I became aware of the fact that there was something wrong with the passengers around us. The man eating the sandwich seemed to chew it in strange movements, like he didn't actually know how to properly eat. The young couple that was looking at us earlier were talking to each other in strange, hissing whispers. And strangest of all, the reflections of the other patrons seemed slightly warped. It almost looked like a filter or an illusion had been applied to their faces, but it wasn't sinking quite right in the reflections. But the rules didn't say anything about them, and they didn't seem to be bothering us. The real conductor came by once to check on us and give us another stern warning about the rules. All hell broke loose, however, at 2:27 a.m. The intercom rumbled to life above our heads. "Approaching Crystal River Station," a man's voice said. It was staticky and garbled, unlike the other announcements. "That was the station and the rules, wasn't it?" Amanda asked. "Yeah, we're supposed to close our eyes, I think." I glanced over to the rules again, just to be sure. We closed our eyes tight. The brakes squealed underneath us, and we rolled to a stop. I heard a door open somewhere, and then movement, fluttering footsteps, creaking. Instinctively, I was dying to open my eyes, but I didn't. Cool air wafted into the train car, along with a strange, sick, sweet scent like something rotting mixed with something artificially sweet and flowery, almost like the perfumed odor that we had smelled when we first got on the train. The air also felt heavy and damp, like after a heavy rainstorm or within a basement or a cave. It made my stomach turn, but I forced myself to concentrate on keeping my eyes shut. And then I felt a warm puff of air against the back of my neck. My stomach flipped, nausea rolled over me. I leaned forward, praying the train would start moving again so that I could open my eyes. I felt another breath on my neck, and felt another wave of nausea, and forced my brain to concentrate on something else. I started counting backwards from 100, 99, 98. When I reached 73, the train lurched into motion. I opened my eyes, glanced back, and I froze. There was an old woman sitting right behind me, right there. Her eyes sunk back in their sockets, her skin clung loosely to her bones, and she was smiling. Rows of yellowish, rotted teeth glinted back at me. "Brian," Amanda said, snapping me out of it. And then I realized she had gone on at the Crystal River stop. The rules said if that happened to move to a different train car immediately. I jumped out of my seat. They didn't explicitly tell us not to look at or interact with the woman, but that was implied, wasn't it? I grabbed Amanda, and we started for the front of the cafe car, but the woman leapt out of her seat, sidestepping in front of us and blocking our way. Despite her age, she was 6 feet tall and incredibly thin. The lights began to flicker overhead, and in the moments of darkness, her face looked more like a skull, her lip quirked into a smile. She reached into the folds of her dress and pulled out a curved dagger. "When life is created, you must pass away," she said in a throaty rasp. Her eyes looked past me at Amanda. "Your blood has already forged your replacement. Now is your time." She lifted the dagger in the flickering light. We turned around and ran. I knew that we would be running back to the quiet car, but we didn't have a choice. The old woman followed us in slow, deliberate steps, a dagger raised. As we ran, the landscape outside flashed by. I saw strange things, cavern walls stretching up towards the sky, a river cutting through the rock, crystal clear, glistening in the moonlight. Something clicked in my mind suddenly. Crystal River, River Styx, the underworld, the old woman who resembled death. All of these things flew through my mind as we scrambled into the vestibule, panting. And then we were standing at the door to the quiet car. Amanda glanced back at me, giving me a questioning look. I turned to see that the old woman was almost at the door, her dagger raised above her head. "We have to," I whispered to Amanda. "We just have to make sure to stay absolutely silent." She nodded. The door opened. The inhabitants of the quiet car had returned to their seats, they stared straight ahead, not looking at us. As long as we were perfectly silent, they would probably stay that way. At least I hoped that that was the case. I tiptoed down the aisle, following Amanda. My shoes made the softest, tiniest thumps on the linoleum, but it didn't seem to draw attention. I glanced back to see the others looking straight ahead, paying no attention. But then it happened. I saw it in slow motion. Amanda's left foot smacked against one of the seats, and then her body twisted forward, arms flailing in front of her, scrambling for purchase. She fell flat on the floor, her body made a loud thump. When I looked up, every eye was on us. "Oh, no, no, no." I grabbed Amanda by the arms and hoisted her up, and then we ran for our lives. I could hear them moving behind us, but we kept running. We got to the end of the car, stumbled across the vestibule, and ran into the next car. I glanced back. They were following us. "Keep going," I shouted. We ran through car after car, but in the end, we were trapped. We were in a 1,000-ton hull of steel, rocketing through the night at 100 miles per hour. Jumping off the train would mean certain death, even if we could somehow get the windows open. And even if the train miraculously decided to stop right now, the rules said that we couldn't get off at any station other than our own. We were trapped. I glanced back at the people. They had entered the car, but they were frozen in their spots, mid-run, staring at us. "Wait a second," I grabbed Amanda by the arm and turned around so that I was walking backwards. They continued to stay frozen. "I think they can't move when we're looking at them," I told her. It seemed true. They didn't move a muscle as they stared at us with bloodshot eyes, hair gently swaying. The two of us walked backwards, slowly, carefully, keeping our eyes on the horde. But then my back hit something, the door to the next car. I glanced back and realized that we had made it to the last car, the one that we weren't supposed to enter. Yellow tape crisscrossed the door, reading, "Caution." A sign right under the window read, "Keep out," in bold red letters. Cracks spiderwebbed across the surface of the window. The train car beyond was totally dark. "What now?" Amanda whispered, squeezing my hand. "I don't know. Keep your eyes on them for a second, okay?" I cupped my hands over the window and peered into the car. All of the lights were out. In the darkness, I could make out the vague contours of chairs, windows, an aisle threading down the middle, but it was incredibly dark inside. I couldn't tell whether anybody was in the car or if it was empty. "The rules said not to go in," I said. "Oh, forget the rules," Amanda shouted back. "It's either go in there or die." I glanced back. Amanda was right. The people from the quiet car were halfway down the aisle. Some were on the floor, crawling on all fours, pale fingers splayed out across the linoleum, heads tilted upwards to look at us with bloodshot eyes. Others were crouched in the surrounding seats, peering up at us from over the seatbacks. A few stood in the vestibule, peering hungrily at us through the window. We only had one option. "As long as we're looking at them, they can't move, so we have to stand here for the next 3 hours and stare at them," I said. "I don't know if I can," she replied, her voice wavering. "I'm so tired." "I know, but we have to do it to survive, okay?" Keeping my eyes on them, I led us to the nearest seats and sat down. I leaned into the aisle, staring at them, statue still. "You can rest," I told Amanda. "I won't take my eyes off them." "You can't," she whispered. "Just rest." Seconds ticked by, and then minutes. Every time that the train swayed, the people did too, just barely. Their expressions never changed, eyes too wide, some of them grinning, but I could tell that they were alive because every so often they blinked. And then, about 10 minutes into it, the unthinkable happened. The lights flickered overhead and went out. And the darkness was immediately filled with the sounds of them pawing across the aisle, stumbling and running, desperately clawing their way toward us. Our options narrowed to one. I yanked Amanda out of the seat with me, opened the door, and we careened into the vestibule. The metal plates of the floor slipped and shifted underneath us. Trees and grass blurred past us through the windows. The wind rushed in our ears. I ran to the door and pried it open, and then we slipped through. We were in the final car. We were breaking the rules. I heard the thwack of the horde's bodies hitting the door behind us. They weren't following us. Even they feared the final car, apparently. I had most certainly decided our death, but hopefully it wouldn't be as painful as being clawed apart by whatever they were. The car was dark. I fumbled into the first seat, pulling Amanda with me. The two of us sat in the darkness, the silence, and then I heard it. Drip. The sound of liquid hitting the linoleum floor, coming from somewhere behind us. "Do you hear that?" I whispered to Amanda. She nodded in the darkness. My eyes were slowly adjusting to the darkness. I could make out the vague outlines of the seats in front of us, the darkness of the windows pitch black again, no lights, no buildings, no sign of civilization. It's like we were traveling through a pitch-black expanse of space, disconnected from the rest of the world. I could see the plastic paneling around the windows, the darkness under the seats in front of us. I noticed now the car was lit by dim, yellowish lights coming from inside the paneling, some sort of emergency lighting system. I hadn't even noticed it when we had entered, only now that my eyes were adjusting to the darkness. The dripping sound continued. I slowly turned around. At first, I didn't see anything, just the empty train car, the rows of seats, the pitch-black windows. But then I heard it again. Drip. My brain was able to pinpoint the sound. There was a small puddle on the floor, dimly reflecting the light. My gaze followed it upwards, and I saw two pale fingers poking from the armrest behind us. They were covered in blood, slick, black, and glistening. Drip. I swallowed. The train car seemed to tilt and spin underneath me. "There's somebody back there," I told Amanda, squeezing her arm. She leaned over me and glanced back. As soon as she saw it, she froze. Is that blood? I nodded. The dripping continued, pounding into my brain, drip, 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 like a ticking clock inside my skull. I glanced back again, this time standing up slightly to get a better look. I froze. It was the young couple that we had seen board the train in Philadelphia, but they were dead. Long gashes covered their chests, blood caked their hair and dripped down their arms. Their mouths were open in silent screams. They weren't the only ones, other people occupied the rows behind us. I couldn't see them fully, just bits of arms and shoulders and heads poking out, but they were all deathly still. They were all covered in blood. This car, it's where they keep the bodies, I choked. Amanda looked up at me. We're going to die here. I sat back down and wrapped my arms around her. No, we're not. We're going to get out of here. But I knew that was a lie. As we sat in the silence, I heard another sound. It was so soft that I didn't hear it at first, but now as my mind got used to the dripping, I could pick it out. It was a soft pulsing sound, the sound that you hear when you put your fingers in your ears and hear your heartbeat, the sound of pulsing liquid. I turned around and slowly stood up. I forced myself to look down at the deceased couple behind us. There was a thin rope of something wet and shiny that attached to each of their wrists. I peered over our seat backs, looking for what it attached to, and then I saw it, a sort of pod lying on the floor, wet and pulsing. Two of them, one attached to each person. In the woman's, I could see the contours of a face pressed against the membrane skin of the pod. I turned. Amanda was looking down at them too, her mouth hanging open. They're making clones, I whispered. And then it all made sense. The clones were being made from the victim's blood. And Amanda, she had stuffed all those bloody tissues in the trash at the beginning of the trip. Somebody had fished them out and used them to make her clone. And then the fake conductor, the old woman, they were all trying to kill her to make way for this new life. But before I could tell Amanda this, the intercom rumbled to life. Smithson Junction, service stop only. We have to get off. Amanda said, her voice frantic now. She tore away from me, running for the door. Amanda, no. I reached for her, but she slipped out of my grasp. The vestibule door opened in front of her, and she ran through. I ran in after her, and in the nick of time, wrapped my arms around her tightly. Let me go, she shrieked. They said that we can't get off here. We can only get off at our stop. We're going to die. The door to the outside slid open with a horrible screech. The station looked like it had been abandoned for years. The concrete platform was stained and pitted. Nature had tried to reclaim it, sending up long vines that clung to the concrete, curled up the sign. The letters were faded, and the entire metal sign was rusted, looking almost blood-stained. A small building with a gabled roof sat across the platform, the windows shuttered, the roof collapsing in on itself. Beyond it, a forest stretched in every direction, pitch black. Amanda began to sob in my arms. I held her right, rocked gently as we stared out at the dilapidated station. I would have given anything to step off the train at that moment and be somewhere, anywhere else. This would probably be the last time that I breathed any fresh air, the last time I felt the moonlight on my face. We would die in this steel prison sometime before 5:17 a.m., before we made it to Boston. Would they ever find our bodies, or would we and the bodies in car number 12 be buried or burned? Would the news say that we eloped somewhere, ran away because our families disapproved? Everybody would picture us living out our best lives on an island somewhere. No one would ever know that we died in the darkness of an old, rotting train, screaming for our lives. I love you, I whispered to Amanda. I love you too. The door to the train car rattled open, and my entire body froze. This is it. And when I looked up, I saw the conductor. Get off, he said. He gestured to the open door. I said, get off. But the rules. I'm trying to save your lives, okay, he shouted. Get off the car, now. Amanda and I looked at each other, and then she grabbed my arm and yanked me forward. The two of us leapt off the train car and onto the dilapidated platform. Seconds later, the doors closed behind us. We ran for our lives across the platform, down into the empty parking lot. A single street lamp flickered above us. The forest surrounded us. A whistle pierced the silence, and I looked up to see the train pull away. I could see several people with grayish skin watching us, faces pressed against the glass. And then the final car with its dark window on enormous steel coffin, a womb snaking down the track and into the great unknown. And then there was only silence. "Where are we?" I asked. I thought maybe that we were stranded in a place disconnected from reality, like the enormous lake that we had crossed. But Amanda pulled out her phone, and as she zoomed out, I saw we were somewhere in Connecticut, around where we should be. She called 911, and then we sat on the cracked asphalt, waiting for the police to arrive. Somewhere in the distance, I heard the faint whistle of a train. It almost sounded like a scream.